let's start with our first talk. It's by Liz Butler, The Heart, Our Master Connector. I'm going to read Liz's biography out so I don't miss anything. Liz is a therapist who has spent many years supporting people with serious illness, particularly cancer. Originally trained as a nutritional therapist, she came to realize emotional and spiritual healing were a priority need for her clients. And at this point, she added to her training. Liz is an emotional freedom technique trainer and a matrix re-imprinting practitioner and a heart math coach. Liz has been a lifelong student of spirituality and metaphysics, her interests particularly drawn towards the perennial wisdom teachings. She is a member of the Theosophical Society and is currently studying for a high diploma in Theosophy. After completing the coaching program with Heart Math, Liz became greatly interested in the heart and has spent several years incorporating heart connection into her healing work with clients. She has created a module for emotional and physical healing that fully engages and utilizes the transformational power of the heart. She calls it Heart Matrix Therapy. Liz is currently writing a book revealing the deep and until now hidden story of the heart. So over to you, Liz.
I will just take a sip of water. Hopefully my voice is going to hold up. So in the first talk of today, I'm going to be presenting the idea that our heart is our master connector. You may be wondering what on earth I mean by that term, but don't worry, I will reveal all in the next about 45 minutes. Connection is a word we're going to be hearing a lot throughout today. It's a word extremely important for the times we live in, because disconnection is at the root of all the troubles we see in the world today. And I'm sure you're going to agree with me. We are living in a very troubled world right now. So if disconnection is the root of our troubles and the heart is the master when it comes to connection, could that mean the heart is the solution to all the problems we see in the world? I believe so, and I'm hoping that by the end of today, you might agree with me. So the first thing to say is that the heart is infinitely mysterious. And to some degree, I believe it always will be. Having said that, the heart has so much to reveal to us. And although there will always be some mystery, at this special time in our history, when our consciousness is undergoing a leap in its evolution, the heart is calling out for attention, imploring us to get to know it. One of the reasons the heart is mysterious is that it is incredibly complex, and it speaks to us of the very nature of life itself. Another reason the heart is mysterious is that its many secrets have long been hidden, purposely. Because when we come to know the heart, gaining insights into the meaning of life, we come to realize the power that lies within us. Some have wanted to keep us from the knowledge of this power, believing we're not mature enough to understand its implications. Others have wanted to hide this information because once we realize our power, we are free and can no longer be controlled. Today, I'm going to be thinking about the heart in its broadest terms, and we can categorize this broad heart in various ways. Many, myself included, like to think of the heart as having three aspects: physical, energetic, and spiritual. All three aspects are interconnected, and although they may appear separate, this is an illusion. The only thing that separates them is the frequency of their vibration. Okay, now I want you to think for a moment. If something were to be a master at connection, what do you suppose its prime position in relation to everything else would be? I would say its prime position for maximum connection ability would be in the middle of everything. Would you agree? Now, although the secrets of the heart have remained largely hidden for a long time, there have always existed clues, and the most important one is the heart's double meaning. As we know, heart, as well as indicating our physical organ, also means center or core. Our hearts, in their broadest terms, really do reside in the middle of everything. This esoteric statement sounds mysterious, and you may imagine it doesn't mean a lot in reality. However, it holds very deep significance. And so if you'll forgive me, I'm going to spend a short time diving into the spiritual meaning behind this statement. Excuse me. According to the most ancient wisdom, the perennial wisdom that underlies all spiritual and religious teaching, all life on any scale, as above, so below, emerges from and returns to a single point. These single points are known as 0 points. This is a quote from the great mystic and co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky. The universe is contained in ovo, in the first natural point. What she means, as she elaborates in many of her writings, is that there is one absolute reality which antecedes all creation. And as with an egg, all of creation is contained in a single point through which it emerges. But it's not just the mystics who speak of 0 points. Modern scientists now believe our universe was once an infinitely tiny, infinitely dense point termed a singularity, and that this point expanded out in the Big Bang. Helena Blavatsky doesn't just place these 0 points at the beginning and end of time, however. She maintains that the 0 point state is present throughout the whole period of manifestation. And scientists are also finding these singularity points present throughout our existence. They are to be found at the center of black holes. And at these points, the gravitational field becomes infinitely strong, ripping apart space-time. In other words, at these points, two seemingly opposing fields of physics, quantum mechanics describing the super tiny, and general relativity describing the very large, come face to face with each other. In other words, again, this is the point at which the physical reality that we know and understand meets a transcendent reality that our everyday small minds don't understand. In the ancient teachings, 0 points are depicted by what is known as a circumpunct, a circle with a dot at its center. And this is one of the most ancient symbols known to man. It has been used by several religions to represent oneness or God. But it represents oneness at the very moment that duality emerges at the start of all life, and it emerges through this central point. If you weren't already aware, we live in a holographic world. Mystics have told us this for millennia, and now scientists are confirming it. And in this holographic world, where the microcosm and macrocosm reflect one another, the circumpunct with its central point can represent large, medium, and small-scale entities, not only God, but the universe, an individual man, and a single cell. The 0 point at the core of each of these, the sun, the heart, and the nucleus, contain within them the spark of creation or intention. These points are where spirit resides and through which the life principle flows. Since ancient times, the sun, heart, and a cell's nucleus have often been associated with one another. Bringing our focus to the heart, not only does the heart form the 0 point in man, as a holographic reflection, it contains its own central point. Many mystics have spoken of a spark or a flame at the very center of the heart, one of these being Helena Blavatsky again. She has said, in the heart is a spot which is the last to die, a spot marked by a tiny violet light. That is the seat of life, the center of all. Brahma, the first spot that lives in the fetus and the last that dies. Interestingly, very old illustrations of the heart were shown with a dot at their center. The heart was represented by a boundary line encircling empty space, usually creating the shape of an inverted pine cone. Now, I know this shape doesn't look particularly like a pine cone. It's the best I could do with the PowerPoint shapes. It looks more like a tear, but anyway, imagine a pine cone. And there at the center was either a square or a round dot. The meaning of the dot has puzzled contemporary historians, but detailed text accompanying an image of the heart from a medieval anatomical plate provides the key. And I quote now from a contemporary description of this medieval image and text. One of the two plates showing the circulation of the blood contains a heart with not a round but a square core, which the Latin text describes as a black grain inside the heart in which the spirit resides. Let me repeat those words of the medieval writers. A black grain inside the heart in which the spirit resides. As you'll know, a grain is a seed. And I mention that because at the center of the symbol for the heart chakra, known as anahata, there is a syllable used for seed. Seed is a metaphor for the origin or cause of all things. It is the spark of creation. This central seed is set within a 6-pointed star, one triangle of the star representing the lower physical realms and the other the upper transcendent realms. And this is set within a peaked circle representing a lotus flower with 12 petals. And while we're talking about the heart chakra, in Sanskrit, anahata means sound produced without touching two parts. And at the same time, it means pure or stainless. The name of this chakra signifies the state of freshness that appears when we're able to stand at a boundary point between two states and to look at the different and apparently contradictory experiences of life with a sense of openness and expansion, which I think says so much about the qualities of the heart. When we go within our heart, we can stand at this point and hopefully see our world with this sense of openness and expansion. By now, I hope you're beginning to understand the spiritual heart as the mystics and wisdom teachers have done for millennia and still do today. They see the spiritual heart as the point at which life force enters and leaves this physical realm, the beginning and end of physical life, and as such, absolutely central to everything. So before changing direction just slightly, I wanted to read you a quote by the Indian Hindu sage Ramana Maharshi. The entire universe is condensed in the body and the entire body in the heart. Thus, the heart is the nucleus of the whole universe. So moving on now, but staying with the chakras, I want to explore in more detail the idea of our heart as our master connector. Chakra is a Sanskrit word meaning disc or wheel, and in our physical body, we have 7 chakras of spinning, spiraling energy, forming energy focal points as part of our subtle body. The lower 3 chakras, root, sacral, and solar plexus, relate to the physical material realm, whereas the upper 3, throat, third eye, and crown, relate to the transcendent realms. The heart chakra at the center is the connecting bridge between the 2 realms. Staying with the subtle energy body, we can also consider the 3 wisdom centers of the human form, these being the head, the heart, and the hara, or gut. These are key energetic centers, but they also show their importance on a physical level. As you may or may not know, not only does the head have a brain, but the heart and the gut also have neurological centers that we can think of as brains. With regards to the heart, its little brain contains around 40,000 neurons in total, as well as neurotransmitters, proteins, and support cells, as would be found in the cranial brain. Both of these brains are capable of processing information independently of the cranial brain, and also, quite incredibly, possess short-term memory capabilities. To connect with their wisdom, these 3 centers draw on different qualities. The head draws on the intellect, our intellect being our logical reasoning. The hara, I'm going to jump to the bottom, draws on instinct. Our instinct being the lessons we have learned from very ancient times that we carry in our genes and can call on instantaneously without the need for mental processing. And then the heart. The heart draws on intuition. Intuition being insights we draw from energy and information fields that lie beyond our individual self. These wisdom centers also use different modes for perception and processing. The head uses our thoughts. The hara uses sensations, physical sensations within our body, such as, for example, hunger pains or sensations of cold or warmth, tingling within our body, energy rushes within our body, butterflies in our tummy when we're feeling nervous. All those sorts of things are what I'm talking about here. And the heart, it uses images and emotions. However, there is some overlap that goes on here. In particular, there's considerable overlap when we talk about the heart. To explain that a bit more, in these modern times, we tend to relate the heart to the emotional part of our being only. However, our ancient ancestors understood that there is an aspect of mind that resides in our heart. Courage, determination, discernment, and hope are all still linked to the heart, and yet all of these have an element of will to them. Will being a reflection of strength of mind. And then there is the link between the heart and bodily sensations. Research shows that when our heart energies are coherent, and I'll talk a little bit more about coherence in a moment, then we have enhanced what's called interoception. Interoception is defined as the sense of the internal state of the body, and that can be conscious or non-conscious. So when our heart energies are coherent, then we have a greater sense of what's going on within our body. And so you can see there that the heart incorporates the qualities and the mode of perception of the head,
Liz, are you there?
Liz, you've just muted yourself.
We lost you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. That must have been my internet.
I think
just
it was.
disappeared. Right, let me.
We lost the last minute and a half.
Oh,
probably.
did you?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let me see. Let's get things back.
So maybe if you could just go back to that slide and just repeat that, would that be okay?
Yes, of course. Okay, apologies for that. Oh, I do love technology. Right, let's just move things around so I can see everything. Okay, so I don't know where I was up to here, but do you think I should start the beginning of the slide again?
Well,
the last thing you said was interoception, Liz.
Okay, so right, let's go back to that important point. So interoception then is when we basically it's defined as the sense of the internal state of the body, and it can be conscious or non-conscious. And what I was saying there, I think I'd said that this is that when our heart energies are coherent, and I am going to explain what that means a bit more, and you'll hear lots about it the rest of the day. When our heart energies are coherent, then we have a greater sense of what's going on within our body. We're able to pick up on those little, sometimes very subtle signals that our body is giving us, which of course means that we're able to regulate our body and look after our body more effectively because we're really aware of what's going on within it. Okay, so hopefully you've got all that I was saying. And the reason for talking about all of this is really to show you that the heart not only connects the two extremes of who we are, it integrates them. It actually contains all that they are. So the heart has its own qualities, its own modes of perception, but it incorporates some of those from the head and also the hara. Okay. I'm just moving things around here a moment. Okay. When we emerge from spirit and enter this physical reality, we enter a world of duality. Everything we see around us is defined by its opposite. We understand light because we experience darkness. We understand warmth because we experience cold, and so on and so on. This duality also lives within us. We have a conscious and unconscious aspect to ourselves. We spend time awake and asleep. Our breath comes in and it comes out. Our body systems fluctuate up and down, and also, whatever our gender, we all contain both feminine and masculine qualities. This is a list of some of the dualities we meet in life. The body, associated with the feminine and the left side, contrasts with the mind or brain associated with the masculine and the right side. The left side associated with the circle, with darkness, earth and water. The right side with a straight line, with light, with air and fire. The left side with in and down, passive, receiving. The right side with out and up, action and giving. The left side with other, with feelings and sensations. The right side with self and thoughts. The left side with negative, magnetic and potential. The right side with positive, electric and manifestation. But what I want you to understand is that the heart sits in the middle of all of this, connecting and integrating the two extremes that we meet in our dual world. The heart in our modern society is often reduced to the feminine, softer, emotional aspect of who we are, but this is not all of the heart. It also contains the masculine strength and power. And if we talk about the geometrical aspect, and we should always consider this as geometry, sacred geometry underlies and informs all life, then when we combine the circle, the feminine circle, with the straight line, the masculine straight line, we get a spiral. A spiral goes round in circles, but it also has forward movement. Spirals are everywhere in nature because life force itself moves in a spiral fashion. And therefore, it's no surprise that the heart, which, as we said, speaks to the very nature of life, is very much associated with spirals. So the heart muscles, it's been discovered in the last few decades, are actually arranged in a spiraling form. As I said, it wasn't really known. This wasn't really known until fairly recently, when quite an incredible cardiologist, a Spanish cardiologist, boiled up a bovine heart. And then after removing the vessels, he was able, using his hands, to unwind, because the heart had been softened with the boiling, he was able to unwind the muscle of the heart. And he discovered that it was actually one continuous band-shaped muscle that's folded up into a spiraling form. So that's a very important, powerful link between spirals and the heart. Also, when the heart beats, it creates a vortex. And what this does, and we think of the heart in its physical form as being a pump for the blood, but it's so much more than that. And when the heart beats, as it beats, it has a twisting motion. It's a bit like when you wring a towel. It twists like this, doesn't it? And that's how the heart moves as it beats. And as it does that, it creates a vortex. And this sets the blood off round the body. And the blood, it has a spiraling motion as it moves through the body. So, and that is the most efficient way for a fluid to move, rather than what's called laminar flow. It has a spiraling flow. And it is the heart that sets up that spiraling motion. But anyway, I digress. There's so much fascinating information regarding the heart. This lecture could go on for days, but I don't have days. And so let's get back on track and explore more deeply the connecting abilities of the heart. And the heart connects us in three ways. It connects us, first of all, to the body. It connects us internally. It also connects us externally. We can think of this as the mind, as the energy that moves out beyond our body. And then finally, the heart connects us to spirit. It connects us spiritually. I'm going to explore each of these ways in a little more detail now. So first of all, connection with our body. The heart connects all systems, organs, cells, and the intercellular microenvironment, which is the fluid and the protein cytoskeleton, it's called, like the protein mesh that sits in the fluid, that sits between all of our cells and connects all of our cells. So the heart connects all of this, and it does it in 4 ways. First of all, using the endocrine system, our hormones, and this is biochemical connection. Secondly, it connects via the nervous system, neurological connection. Thirdly, through its mechanical pressure waves as it beats. This is known as biophysical connection. Excuse me. And finally, it connects through classical and quantum energy waves, known as bioenergetic connection. So a bit more about the endocrine connection. Again, this wasn't known until quite recently, but the heart is an important part of our endocrine system, and it produces several types of hormones. The main ones are called the natriuretic hormones, and that word is quite difficult to say. These are called the natriuretic peptides, in fact, and their primary role is to participate in the regulation of sodium and water levels and helping with their homeostasis. And through that, they therefore balance the blood volume and the blood pressure. And so in this way, the heart helps to balance the cardiovascular system to which it belongs. They have other roles too, these hormones. They also protect our brain. They support the immune system. They help keep our broncho vessels, our airways dilated and open. And they also have an anti-anxiety effect. So that's the natriuretic peptides. And then the heart also produces large amounts, almost as much as the brain does, of the hormone oxytocin. You may know that oxytocin is important for parental, couple, and social bonding. So see how the heart on a physical level is vital for our connection, for one-to-one connection. So back to the previous slide, and I'll talk a little bit more now about the nervous system, the neurological connection. This, I think, is a really fascinating fact about the heart, which is that more neural traffic, so this is the nervous signals, is sent from the heart to the brain than the other way around. And the brain alters its behavior in response to the heart signals. So who said the brain was the master controller of the body? And were they actually correct? Of course, there's so much more I could say about all of this, but to cover everything, I'm keeping it fairly brief. So then we've got the mechanical pressure waves generated by the heartbeat. That's another important way that the heart connects us. So the heart is the only organ, excuse me, that consistently produces sound and pressure that we can hear and feel. And this is providing our body, every single cell, with information in every single moment. As the pressure moves through the body, it affects the intracellular microenvironment. As I said, that's the fluid and the protein cytoskeleton between our cells. And through affecting the intercellular microenvironment, it then impacts the cell itself. And this signal, this pressure signal, enters the cell. And then through a process that's known as mechanotransduction, this pressure signal is converted within the cell into either a biochemical or an electrical signal. And those signals then interact with our genetic material, with our DNA, and we get changes in our gene expression. And then, of course, changes in the way that the cells behave. So, you know, this is quite incredible, I think. Every time our heart beats, it sends out, like ripples through the body, it sends out sound and pressure, which are the same types of mechanical waves. These ripple through the whole body. And right down at the cellular level, they create signals within our cells that then impact our gene expression. How amazing is that? So back to this slide again, and we're now talking about the final way that the body connects us internally, the heart connects us internally within our body. And this is through classical and quantum energy waves, bioenergetic connection. Now, I'm not going to actually say more on this here because we're going to get into the energy aspect when we talk about how the heart connects us externally. But in summary, with all of these methods of communication, it's important to just tell you that while simple strength of the signal has a role to play, it's the rhythms and patterns that are most important. It's the rhythms and patterns within our body that carry information, and they are the fundamental language of communication, the fundamental language of all life, in fact. So let's talk about how the heart connects us outside of our body now. The heart radiates electromagnetic and quantum energy beyond our bodies, and it also receives it from beyond our bodies, allowing connection and communication with other living beings, the planet, and the cosmos. There are still quite a lot of unknowns when it comes to quantum energy. It's a fascinating subject, but there's still so much we don't know about the quantum world. But in terms of classical electromagnetic energy, we know quite a bit in relation to the heart. We know that the electromagnetic field of the heart is by far the most powerful in the body. The electrical component is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude compared with that produced by the brain. And the magnetic component is more than 100 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. And these energy fields that the heart produces, they extend out beyond our bodies and they overlap and communicate with the heart fields of others. Now, that's pretty much all I'm going to say on this because this topic is going to be covered in depth in Peter's talk this afternoon. And he's so much interesting information to share with you on that. What I will just talk about briefly, however, is coherence. And I said I'd come back to coherence because the quality of our energetic communication depends so much on coherence. But what is coherence? When we think of coherence in general, we think of ordered patterning. We may describe coherence as a clear, consistent, and ordered relationship between parts. When something is coherent, it carries more power. And that's because it's able to communicate more information. Now, energy signals can be coherent or incoherent. And in terms of our body's energy, when the energy within our bodies, the energy fields, are coherent, it has a very, very beneficial effect on our physiology, improving the function of every organ and every system, and also improving our emotional well-being. Now, because the heart creates the most powerful energy field in the body, what it can do is bring other energy systems, those within us, and also those outside of us, it can bring them into sync. And this happens through a process called entrainment. The best way to think about entrainment is to think about when we have pendulum clocks. If you put lots of pendulum clocks in the same room, then over a relatively short period of time, they will all become entrained. The energy signals will become in sync, and they will start to, those pendulums will start to move together. This is entrainment. And so when our heart energy is coherent, we can directly influence the well-being of others. So because our heart energy is most powerful when it is coherent and carries most information, then it can affect, first of all, our own bodies and others more powerfully when it is in this state. And again, Peter is going to talk more about this later. And it's not just that our energy affects the people around us, it affects every living thing around us. Research shows our energies are communicating with the energies of nature and the cosmos in a feedback loop. So imagine the positive effects on our planet when we send out coherent heart energy. And there's one very wise mystic who has said, the goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature. Okay, so we've talked about connections within our body. We've talked about connections outside of our body. Let's now talk about how our heart connects us to spirit. In ways we don't fully understand, the heart connects our physical bodies with our individual souls and ultimately with the universal spirit. It is the heart that allows spirit, and we can think of this as life force, to enter our bodies, and therefore physical life begins and ends with the heart. As I said at the start of the presentation, there's a huge amount of division, separation, and disconnection in our world right now, and it is killing us, either slowly or quickly. Now more than ever, we need to understand the true nature of the heart and how it connects us. We need to hear its message urgently. And I believe the heart exists on all levels, from the spiritual down to the energetic and further down to the physical, to show us something crucial. But what is the heart's message? Well, there are many words and concepts that allude to it, many of which I've mentioned and we'll touch on throughout the rest of the day. Connection, integration, wholeness and healing, truth, peace, wisdom, authenticity, joy, intuition, compassion, and love. But these aren't the ultimate message. They point to it, they allude to it, but they aren't actually it. The heart's ultimate and only message is oneness. The great truth that forms the foundation of all spirituality. This we find in the perennial wisdom that underlines all religions, is that we are one with God. God doesn't exist outside of ourselves, but within us. We are one with God. And God is not a term that everyone likes to use. We can replace that with the absolute, with all that is, even with life force. It is all the same thing. And no one could portray this idea more beautifully than Rumi. I looked in temples, churches, and mosques, but I found the divine within my heart. And so, what I haven't said to you so far is that we have control over our heart coherence. We can increase our heart coherence. And the two main ways that we do this are by slowing and deepening our breath, and also focusing on things that make us feel good emotionally. So when we go into a state of meditation and we slow down our breathing, and then when we're in this state, we actually focus on those things that make us feel good. So we bring the things that we love to mind. We feel gratitude for those things in life that are so important to us. In those moments when we do that, we are increasing our heart coherence. And there are ways we can measure this using what's called heart rate variability. And again, I think Peter's going to talk a bit about that later. And so really the message from my talk today is that we hear all this talk about carbon footprints, and we know that carbon footprints are important for improving our environment and saving our planet. But I want to talk about our heart print. We can increase the power and the coherence of our heart print. And when we do that, we can change the world. Okay. So we've got a little time for questions. Does anyone have any questions? There's quite a lot in that talk that they're quite big concepts. I was talking about spirituality, and you know, these are big things to get our heads around sometimes, and sometimes we can't get our head around some of these things, and it's best sometimes not even to try, but to just go into our heart and be with them. So I will stop sharing.
And Gabrielle has her hand up, Liz.
And hi, Gabrielle. Would you like to unmute yourself and go ahead with your question?
First of all, thank you very much for this beautiful and inspiring talk.
Thank you,
very first I want to really say thank you. It was really wonderful and comprehensive and a lot of layers, and still really good to understand and to follow. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
So I was just wondering, because I also research in that field, and I'm just wanted to research together a bit deeper. So my question is actually what I was thinking when you were talking about connection and disconnection. Like, I would agree, and I prefer to say and instead of but. What is about toxic connection? Or I also agree this whole relationship, it's kind of a really important new paradigm. But I put it like toxic connection, you know, so maybe we need a third category, or how would you put it, or an unhealthy relationship. So in your view, how we handle them the best, because
okay, so I guess are you asking me whether when we are having negative feelings about people, that perhaps that has a negative influence through our heart energies? Is that what you mean by toxic connection?
Yes, I'm wondering, you know, okay, we go into connection with somebody, but sometimes it's not, we want that connection, but it doesn't work. So we're kind of obliged to go into disconnection sometimes. So This is why I'm wondering if it's good to say connection and disconnection is wrong, or I don't know how we could integrate this.
I see what you mean. I think I'm understanding your question, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think that one of the most important things to say is just to reiterate that when our heart is coherent, it carries more power. And so when we are feeling loving thoughts and gratitude, and then our heart energy will reach out further and it will impact others to a deeper level. Whereas if we're feeling disconnected, if you like, but I think you're saying you're not sure about those terms, but when we're feeling maybe ambivalent towards someone, or perhaps even have some negative feelings towards someone, then yes, I do think it's true that our energies, when they're negative, can influence others. I think we know that experience when we walk into a room and it's full of happy, joyful people. That affects us immediately. But sometimes we go into a room and there's a completely different atmosphere, and people are not feeling happy, or there's maybe some anger, or then that affects us too. But I think what the research is beginning to show is that when our heart energy is coherent, then it has a greater impact and has more of an influence on the world around us. Now, I don't know if that's sort of...
Yeah, I think that was yes, I think it's, if we, with the coherent heart, it's anyway, I agree, I think now, it's easier also to relate or stay at your side or whatever. I think this was the missing information.
Yeah. I didn't make that clear enough then, and I think it is so important, because as I said on that last slide, I think we can change the world more easily than we perhaps imagine, because when we come together and we bring our hearts into coherence, the power is huge. And we know this a little from research studies that have looked at groups of people meditating together, and how that can have real physical effects in reality. So the power of a collective group of people, and when they come together in heart coherence, is incredibly powerful. And I think that is a lot more powerful than a group of people coming together with not such good intentions and putting out more negative energies.
Yes, I'm completely with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? I can't see everyone, so I'm just scrolling through. Just to say that we are going to have lots of time at the end of the day for questions, because there's a lot to take on board today, and it might be that you don't have anything that's immediately coming to mind now, but as you let these ideas filter down, you start to process, then you will start to think of questions.
Annie has a question, I think.
Hi, I wondered if you're going to say more about entrainment. That's new to me, and it's something I'd like to hear more about.
Okay, well, I don't know if Peter's going to talk about that this afternoon. It's very relevant to what he's talking about. But this is a very well-known scientific physics concept, is that when you have different energy signals, the energies will come into sync with the one that's got the most power within it. So the strongest, it's about the strength of the signal. The strongest energy signal will be able to bring the others around it in sync with it. I'm not great on explaining physics things. Peter, I know, will explain it better, but that's pretty much what happens.
Sorry, Liz, I will be covering some of that this afternoon and showing some examples of that happening, if that's all right, Annie.
Yeah, have I explained that sort of right, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a resonance, really, we're talking about. So
Yes.
when two systems are vibrating close to each other, they will tend to sync. And your pendulum idea was good. And the same with tuning forks. If you put two tuning forks together, they will tend to transfer each other's energy till they synchronize. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It happens in all natural systems. Yeah. So I'll show you later happening with two hearts. Well, one heart and then two hearts.
Does that answer your question, Annie? If you want to know more, look it up. You'll find lots of scientific explanations behind that. Okay.
There's a question in the chat, Liz, from Nikki. In terms of the heart creating a vortex when it beats, how does the presence of structural heart valve issues, for example, mitral valve prolapse, mitral regurgitation, affect this? Can this affect heart coherence?
Very good question. Now, I'm not an expert on heart problems and structural issues like that, but if there is damage to the heart, or that's come from heart disease throughout life, or if someone's been born with heart defects, then it may well affect the way that the heart sets up that vortex. Certainly, there's beginning to be more interest because these ideas about the way that the heart is structured with its spiraling muscle that I talked about, and the fact that the heart creates the vortex and then creates the spiraling motion of blood, these are still on the fringes of cardiology research. It's quite amazing because scientists like Leonardo da Vinci understood some of this centuries ago, but it has sort of got sidelined a bit, forgotten, and it's only recently that this research is now coming back to the fore, and it's taking quite a while, but we'll get there because there's so many gaps in the knowledge about how the heart works. The amount of energy that would be required for the heart to pump blood all the way around our cardiovascular system is huge, and it's way more than the heart actually produces. So there's huge flaws in our understanding about how the heart works. And so finally, it seems that some very innovative scientists are exploring what could be the real way that the heart works, and they're bringing our attention to this vortex movement of the heart. As I said, the twisting movement when it pumps, that creates the vortex that then sets in motion the spiraling of the blood. But back to the question, it is true that if the heart is damaged or diseased, it may not be able to produce that vortex in the same way. And as I was about to say, there's growing interest in people with heart disease, heart failure, that is having an impact on the movement of the blood. So in terms of it affecting heart coherence, that's slightly different. That's about the energetic fields of the heart. And it seems that heart coherence is more about, as I said, those two factors, the way that we breathe and our emotional state. So I feel, I don't know if anyone else wants to chip in here, but I feel that even when the heart is damaged, we can have high heart coherence by focusing on our breathing and our emotional state. I don't think that should necessarily affect it. Louise, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak directly to that because, I have heart damage.
Yes.
And it hasn't affected my coherence at all. I'll be talking about this later anyway. I think you're right. It is about energetics. It's about, your intention. And certainly, you know as well, I've done quite a lot of research into the spiraling heart. I have a sense that my heart is still creating those vortexes. So from personal experience, both physically, metaphysically and philosophically, in the way that I am in the world, I don't think it makes any difference at all.
Thank you, Louise.
I think Boone might be able to help you here because he's a cardiologist. So.
Yes, we've got Boone with his hand up here.
Wow.
Hello, Boone.
Hey, hi. Hi. Very nice talk, and a very good answer. As a cardiologist, I've seen hundreds of patients, and this is to Nikki directly. I feel compelled to say, do not let what you don't have or cannot do stop what you can do. I think it's a very important principle that even my worstly affected patients with atrial fibrillation, which is the most common heart rhythm abnormality, where coherence is impossible to get on your heart math software, because the heart in atrial fibrillation is completely dysregulated in its beat-to-beat variability. So the coherence always fails. And it just strikes me that I've seen hundreds of patients with atrial fibrillation who are very coherent energetically, but who can never prove that state on the heart math. So I think I want to shift away, and if that's the meaning behind your question, I want to shift away from having this kind of paralyzing thought that with heart damage, with a heart rhythm abnormality, with ectopics, with mitral valve prolapse and regurgitation, you are unable to achieve coherence, because you can. And coherence is not only something you measure physically, it's something energetically that you can experience in your day-to-day living, in the people you interact with. And so my kind of cardiological assessment of this is that the physical heart and whether or not it generates this nice, beautiful spiraling vortices is not such a relevant question. I think it's how we feel and how we breathe and how we translate that into our relationships with people around us. So I hope that answers the question. And specifically, technically, mitral prolapse and mitral regurgitation push blood back into the left atrium. It technically does not affect left ventricular contraction, because the contraction will still be occurring in that spiraling motion that allows the blood to exit the heart in that way. So I hope that's clear.
That was a fantastic answer, Boone. Thank you so much for contributing your knowledge. And yeah, I think we're all in agreement there then. So thank you for your attention, everyone. It's a delight to speak to you today.